What's going on, all you moms and dads out there? Welcome to the Fade You Podcast, episode 129, a special episode of the Fade You Podcast. Tonight, we love that you decided to spend some time with us, and we hope you enjoy the show with a very special guest tonight. But first, I am your host. My name is Matthew James on Twitter at MatthewJames78, and I've got two drinking dads here with me tonight. Joe in the beautiful, just pristine Hartford Whalers lid. Love to see it.
Can't believe I didn't mess it up in Vegas.
Yeah,
or lose it.
That might be the biggest accomplishment from the trip, is that the hat stayed in one piece. Dave Sherapan loved the hat, loved the lid. And Joe is on Twitter at Joe_knows ____. That's a lot.
Unfortunately.
Still working on it. And our other dad here, Chris Duke, Stu Feiner called him our smelly bitch, and that's what he is. Chris is at HazmatSuit23 on Twitter. Chris has got some poop bets tonight. And Chris, how's it going?
Really great. It's great to have Taylor. It was great to meet her, and for March Madness, it's great to have her on the pod.
I love as soon as you say poops, the alarm goes off again.
Of course. Classic. So our special guest joining us, we're recording on March 31st. And so we were in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and the Fade You group was fortunate enough to meet a lot of people who are in the industry. And we got to meet Taylor Mathis. Taylor works for SuperBook Sports, and she was sitting right outside of the Westgate Clubhouse. And we were fortunate enough to get to chat with her for a little while about her interests and getting in the industry. So we got to land her on the pod tonight. So Taylor, welcome, and thank you so much for your time and for joining our little show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I've really been looking forward to talking NBA and your success with props. We wanted to do this one kind of as the NBA season was winding down, and as we're getting ready to start MLB, because I know that Major League Baseball is your jam. So let's start with this. For people who maybe aren't as familiar with you and your work, just talk about your personal background growing up in the Midwest as a Cubs fan. You went to Iowa, you obviously started betting at some point, and now you found your way in this industry. Just talk about that whole journey.
Yeah, so I'm from the Midwest originally. I'm from a really small town called Sandwich, Illinois, actually, just like a sandwich that you eat. Tiny town. Ended up going to the University of Iowa, go Hawkeyes. For sports journalism, and pretty much right out of college, I got right into whatever my first opportunity was in sports broadcasting, TV wise. So I was in Iowa first, then I moved to Nebraska to cover the Huskers for a local TV station there. I was in Dallas for a while, doing some NFL coverage. Then I was out here in Scottsdale, and I sidelined for the Suns for 2 seasons. And then COVID hit, and I started to dabble in sports gambling and sports betting. And now it's been my full-time thing, and I am 100% completely into it, and working for SuperBook as well as Awesemo too, specifically doing a lot of prop shows with them right now, focusing on NBA. Going to be moving over to the MLB here within the next week. So I'm so excited for baseball season to get started.
Hell yeah, me too. I hate NBA, so it's fine. Let's get baseball.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe, we've been doing our own little handicapping contest for the month of March between all of us, and Joe hasn't been doing the best, but it's also a tough time for Joe because he loves betting baseball, and he's sick and tired of all this basketball stuff. But speaking of basketball, you have had tremendous success, not in NBA sides or totals, but in the NBA props. You've really carved out a groove here, especially this month. I think you've only lost a handful of props overall. So we're a California show, so unfortunately our state can't get its shit together. We don't have a ton of opportunities to bet props, but I know that that can be a very lucrative market. So how do you find your picks, and how are you doing so well in this area?
Yeah, so I think I realized early on when I got into sports betting that props were kind of going to be my bread and butter and the main area that I really wanted to focus on. I don't know why, but it just like I found it more interesting because then I was like, okay, if there's a certain game, I really like paying attention to the teams that I cheer for. But when it comes to other games, what stake do I have in it? Maybe I'll have more stake if I'm looking at a specific player in a game. So that's kind of really how I decided to focus in on props a lot when it comes to betting. For NBA specifically, I have like a theory, a little system to like my madness of how I look for my plays. Pretty much I get up in the morning, I will go, look at what games are out there, and then I start going and I look at the slate for player props. And I basically just start doing basic research on each of the players. So, like for tonight, my favorite play is Chris Middleton over 4.5 assists, which now a lot of people are already telling me the line moved on this one and it's at 5.5 already. But I liked it and I got it at 4.5. And the way I kind of did it is I just go to Chris Middleton. I will go to his stats and I look at his last 10 games generally. And if he's hit the over or under within those 10 games, that's kind of my first basis. Then I look at what he's averaging on the season. And then I use this website called lineups.com. And I will look at what the team that they're playing is doing when it comes to offensive ranking and defensive ranking. It's really easy to read because they color code it. So it's like offensive rebounds allowed. If they're in the green for it, they're clearly towards the top of the league doing well there. If they're red, then they're towards the bottom. It's really simple to pay attention to. That's kind of just some specific things I look for. I look at like past 5 to 10 games that they've played, what they're averaging on the year. Of course, you want to look at some injuries, but with the NBA and towards the end of the regular season right now, it's really hard to specifically, I think, bet on teams that are towards the bottom of the league because a lot of them seem to be intentionally tanking or switching up their rosters for developmental reasons and things like that. So I've tried to stay away from those. And currently, I'm trying to stick with games that have a lot more big name players or teams that are trying to move up in the standings heading into the playoffs.
Any
Yeah.
teams or players you totally avoid? Because you say teams trying to move up, and Chris
Totally.
is betting on the Lakers tonight. I mean,
Yeah, so most of the time I stay away from the Lakers in general, but I do like a play for tonight's game though with the Lakers. I like Malik Monk for over 24.5 PRA. I feel like the volume is going to be there because it's really going to be him and Russell Westbrook tonight with LeBron out. So that's like the one time I would say I usually steer clear of LeBron. Most of the time I usually steer clear of the Lakers, and I just do that because I don't like the Lakers and I don't like LeBron. So it's just my own selfish weird reason for it. But he is one that I stay away from. One guy that I always seem to have really good success with is Tyrese Halliburton. No matter what, if I bet him, he always hits. So he's like my lucky charm guy.
Hell yeah. Do you ever lean towards unders on these props too, Taylor? Because I know there's a lot of, yeah, good. See, that's what I hate when only people fire overs. And I got into it with Ariel Epstein on Twitter once. So
yeah, I totally agree with you. A lot of people I think like to bet overs just because it's more fun. You're going to see them hopefully, scoring more. It's going to be more of an offensively interesting game. But I definitely will bet unders if I think that there's an under that looks good. Like my 2 plays that I had tonight are both overs, but one of them is also a plus money play that I liked too. So that's why I was like, I'll take this over. I try to find one that I feel like is pretty sound. I'm for sure going to hit it. And then I have another one that I either will probably bet an under or it's a plus money of some sort that has really good value that I think is going to hit. And for the month of March, I've been extremely lucky on them. So we'll go with it.
it's not luck. You're doing your research and you know what you're doing. So I've followed about 5 of yours. So it's been really, really good. I think I'm like 5-0 on those. So we appreciate that.
I'm glad. I know that I do my research obviously, but at some point too, I was talking with one of our producers over at Osmo today. We did an MLB future show that'll be out tomorrow morning, but we were going through plays and he's like, you were just on such a streak with NBA. And I was like, I'm starting to think it's slightly luck because I don't understand how every night it seems to be hitting. And I'm like, either I'm researching specifically the right way or I'm just really lucky this month. We'll see. We'll find out tomorrow when it's April 1st.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you have a great system. I mean, because we talk to different people and they'll say, okay, I have this one thing I look at, but it's gotta be a combination of multiple things. Like you can't lean too heavily on season averages.
Right.
You can't lean too heavily on recent performances. You can't solely rely on the matchup. I mean, these are all just different tools that when you combine them together and you kind of find the right ones like you have been, you can be very successful at it.
Yes, definitely. I feel like if you look at all the pieces, put them together like a puzzle, it's a good recipe for success in the prop market.
So now there's only, a handful of games left in the regular season. Are you thinking that you're going to continue looking at props in the playoff? Because it's a whole different animal, right? In the playoffs, the intensity's up. Every team now has something very real at stake.
Right.
So is that going to affect the way that you approach props? And then baseball starting, so are you going to kind of leave NBA behind, or are you going to still try to attack it in the playoffs?
I'm going to attempt. I'm going to do my best to try to get an NBA prop play out every day, since they've been working really well for me and working really well for people that are tailing me to win. So I'm going to try, but I will admit that like baseball's my favorite. It's my first love. Like, go Cubs. I got my Cubs World Series picture. But I'm going to lean more towards betting MLB props once the season officially gets started. I'll be honest, I have not bet really at all when it comes to spring training games whatsoever. I don't really know if I see the point. I feel like that's for like the real crazy degenerates out there who possibly lose some money. I'm like, you don't even know who half of the guys are that are playing, or if they're going to be anything, or what's going to come of it. So I don't really see much of a point in betting on spring training. I've already got a lot of money though on MLB futures. I picked my World Series pick after the World Series last year when the Braves won. So last season, I should say. So I'm ready to go when it comes to MLB futures, but I'm definitely going to be very heavy in the MLB prop market. I'm going to try to do my best during the NBA playoffs to stick in the prop market as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing great, why not ride this wave into the plus? If they can continue to hit and be successful, why not? I mean, you've talked about games that matter. All these games matter. These teams are going to be driven, and you're going to find value, like you said, even on overs or unders. Maybe there's an overinflated, so you take the under, or you think there's a little value on the team, that a guy that might show up and have more assists or blocks or points or rebounds. So yeah, I mean, why not keep it up? And the NBA playoffs are so long, it's April, May, June. So you've got a big sample,
I think you're right too, that a lot of times I feel like in the playoffs, totals tend to be inflated. I feel like, especially on point totals for really big stars. And it's like, not every game of the playoffs are we going to see, guy I always look at is Devin Booker. I feel like he can be a little bit streaky at times when it comes to point scoring. Shouldn't say streaky though in general, because right now the Suns consistently are clearly the best team in the NBA. But he's a guy that I feel like could drop like almost 40 points one night, and then another night he's very big on more being the assist guy, and he doesn't score as much. So I feel like sometimes in the playoffs they inflate a lot of those bigger stars totals.
Oh, for sure.
13-1 ticket on your Suns to win the championship. So let's go cash that ticket.
I'm too. I like for the NBA right now to go to the finals. I like Celtics Suns is going to be my matchup, and I think the Suns easily take that. And I out here right now in the Valley, people are all in that if the Suns don't win it this year, it's like a huge bust and disappointment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I read a stat that I think is really interesting. If the Suns can get to six wins during the regular season, they have a 2/3 chance, according to history, to win the NBA Finals. So they'll have one of the best runs ever in NBA history.
You're up there with like the Bulls and the Magic, Lakers, and all that and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed that your boy Chris Paul can just keep that guy like in a bubble, right?
I think
between games, no groins, no hammies, no wrists, no hand injuries. Just keep that guy in one piece.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's transition from NBA. We'll talk some baseball. You said NBA or MLB is your favorite. It's Joe's favorite. MLB it's such a long season, and there's so many games, so there's so many opportunities to fire plays, and so MLB is also known as like the big stat head game, right? Like you can find, especially now, pretty much any information you want. So what are the tools you like when you look at MLB props?
So MLB props, I would say the number one thing that I generally go to for props specifically is going to be strikeout props. That's what I usually look at the most, or what I focused on the most last MLB season. So I think you really you have less kind of games to look at when you're looking at a starting pitcher specifically, because, they're obviously only starting every days. So it's not going to be as often. So I usually look at their stats for what it's coming to on strikeouts, what their ERA is. And then, of course, same type of thing. Who's the matchup going to be against? Does this pitcher specifically pitch better against lefties? Is a certain lineup full of lefties? They're going to get more strikeouts there. Or do we got more right-handers batting? Things like that. So I mostly look at strikeout plays. I will look at a lot of props when it comes to hits as well. Like so-and-so is going to have, plus or minus whatever, 2.5 hits on today's game. So those are kind of the two main things I look at with MLB props.
Yeah, those K props are fun. I love those sometimes, but it's getting a little bit harder with all the analytics and the other bullshit and all the nerds that get involved, that where they're pulling pitchers in like the 4th inning just because they threw, 80 pitches, 85 pitches.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of makes the strikeouts a little bit tough.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So do you ever look at like Nerfies, no runs, first innings?
Of course.
Yeah.
Most fun to bet in baseball because it's like right after the first inning, it's done. Like you don't have to worry for the whole rest of the. I love Nerfies. Those are super fun to look at too.
Yeah, I've been telling these guys for literally like 3 or 4 years that is my favorite bet in all of sports. It's the Nerfie.
So fun. It's so
fun. And it's a sweat.
You're on it for like what? Maybe like 20 minutes it could be longer. You never know with baseball, but it's very, quick right after the first inning. You either know if you won or you lost, and you're sitting there, you're going for no runs. You're like, yes, come on. Don't get all the strikeouts we need. Or it's, if you're going runs in the first inning, you're hoping that somebody's going to hit a home run or get a base hit.
Right. Yeah. So I'll let you in on a little secret, Taylor. I do have a Nerfy system that's pretty damn good.
Hey.
Basically, it's pretty decent. Yeah. It so what I do is I look at the handedness of the pitcher, and then I'll look at the top 3 or 4 batters. Mm-hmm. And then if if like the top 3, they're going against a righty. If top 3 are lefties, I'm not firing that. But if 2 of the 3 are righties going against the same handedness, like a right-handed pitcher or a lefty against a left-handed pitcher, I love that Nerfy. So if both teams fit that, it's pretty damn good. Okay. Matt and I were nuking it last year, and it was hitting. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, so top 3 or 4 guys, same handedness as the pitcher, both teams.
Got it.
Or also openers too. If a team's using an opener, that kind of, you can kind of throw that out the window because they're there to get everybody out. So you can kind of ride that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, love that. I'm gonna have to use that coming up.
Yeah, I wish I had more time to research it and like dig in on every game, but I kind of just will pick like 2 or 3 every day. And if I find an under I love, I'll look and see if that fits my Nerfy system.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Joe, I was going to ask you about openers because that's kind of a unique situation where, like you said, the dude's job is to literally just get out of the first inning clean, right? So, I mean, will you kind of still consider it if it's an opener, or is it kind of just, if it's too much of an unknown, is it more of a pass?
It really depends on if the guy's good, or like they just have a guy they called up and they needed somebody an innings eater, right? If it's like their setup guy, then hell yeah, we're gonna ride that. But if it's like a guy that's there to go 3 or 4 innings in like garbage time, I don't really like that much. So it'll be a situational thing.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's a fun one. Back to the K props for a second. Beginning of last season, I really tried to get into the strikeout props too. And, you have your usual suspects, right? You have your Bieber, your Cole. Yep. Glass now was a big one last season. in your opinion, Taylor, do you think there's any value in trying to hit those over, or are those just the ones everyone knows and maybe you'd be better off looking for the more under the radar guys?
So I would say for me specifically, I'm definitely someone who's a more under the radar when I look at props, because I don't see the value as much. Like I was saying earlier, even when it comes to NBA props, I like to find one that's more solid. Obviously, like my odds today on my Chris Middleton prop were, I think, like minus 140 or something like that. So pretty good chance that we think it's hitting. But then I also took a plus money that I liked on a guy who's lesser known, like Nick Claxton. That's who my plus money play is that I like for tonight. So I feel like I follow that same trend kind of with baseball. Like, yes, of course, there's going to be games like a Garrett Cole or a Max Scherzer or Shane Bieber, somebody like that, that's going to go out there. They're going to get the strikeouts. Like you're kind of like, what's the point in betting this? So I think it's fun sometimes to find those lesser known guys too, that you can get in on a prop that nobody else like knows of and put it out there for people. I find that more intriguing, but every once in a while, it's still fun to bet, the big starting pitchers, the big stars that everybody's looking at and going for. I actually got a lot of people were giving me crap though on Twitter recently, because they're like, you give us NBA props that are never NBA stars. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
That's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
that's what I said. I'm like, if you win, you win. Why does that matter?
Yeah, it still pays the same.
Right? Like, so
Yeah.
I hope people don't carry that same mentality into baseball season, because I'm going to be looking for ones that are lesser known guys to sneak in there and win money.
Right. And I like when
Yeah.
I'm doing props too in MLB, like one last year that I really loved too was when the Mets weren't scoring on every single Jacob deGrom start. So their team total was always like 3.5. And I'm like, fire the under. They're not going to score for it. I think that's something that there's value. People don't see that. Like when a Garrett Cole's going out there, they know they don't need to score 6 runs.
Right.
So, there's just value to be found there that a lot of people don't really realize.
Exactly.
Chris, get in there. What were you going to say before that?
No, I was just agreeing with her. Yeah, that the smaller markets, it's great because it's like, yeah, and it sucks that anyone would ever say anything about how she's killing it. And it's like, I love to find people, and maybe the one time you want to take someone who's a star like Bieber, it's like we do sometimes, like if a team gets blown out by 20 or 30, like if the Suns get blown out by 30, a bounce, but okay, Bieber just got shelled for 5 and 3 innings, they pull him, he's going to probably regress back. So then maybe they tick it down a half strikeout. So, you can find that value there.
So Taylor, we're fade you. So at times we look for not the guys that you can ride like your aces, but we look for the guys that you can maybe bet against. And I know Chris especially has his little fade list. Chris, one of your guys, Alex Cobb, your boy, sounds like he's added some velocity. So I don't know. We might not want to be fading Cobb salad so much this year. But Taylor, is there anyone kind of infamous that, as you've been following baseball, gotten into betting baseball, that you can think of that's kind of like a fade spot sort of guy that you look to bet against?
I would say, I don't know if there's a specific guy maybe in the prop market that I look at to fade. I would say I always seem to fade the Cardinals though, because I'm a giant Cubs fan and I cannot ever bet for the Cardinals to do well ever. So I fade them as much as possible. I can't stand Albert Pujols either, so I will fade it.
Poo-poo.
I'm like the under if it's like like I'm sure that he's got props out there on games either for home runs or hits. I'm gonna take the under always on those. Never, not into it. I not a Pujols fan. I cannot stand the Cardinals.
So what you're telling us is that anytime we see you post anything or fire anything Cardinals related, cannot trust you to be objective whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm just doing it because I can't stand them.
Purely emotional.
Purely emotional.
Now, when you fade them, is there is there success there, or do we need to be weary? Like, okay, it's just because she hates them, or is it are you strategic about okay, this is a good spot to fade the Cards right here?
I'm not sure. I would say with me, I feel like I put a lot of research into my picks, and I will not put something out there unless I've done a thorough amount of research and I'm really confident in what I'm saying. So I would say if I'm saying bet against the Cardinals tonight. So-and-so is going to beat them. I would be pretty confident in saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get where you're coming from, because you feel a certain way about the Cardinals. And if people are listening to this, they can't see my hat. But, there's a team in Southern California that I kind of have some similar feelings about. Now, people are daring me, because I hate them, to bet their win total under, right? All week I've seen, is this the best lineup of all time?
Oh my God. Yeah, dude. Nobody is, every single person, every single website, it's an easy over, right? It's 96.5 at most shops. At least that's what I've seen. So that's got to be easy, right? What was it last year? Like 102 or 101 or 106?
Yeah.
What was it? And they got it barely. Yeah, 103. So they barely got it. And then now they're putting it 96 with an arguably better team. Something smells fishy.
I'm going to bet points, rebounds, assists for Monk, because she said so. I'm going to go bet that smelly under. Fuck the Dodgers. Even though I'm a Dodger fan, but see, I don't hold any bias. I'm not
a big Dodger fan either. So I like players on the Dodgers, but I do not like the Dodgers as a whole.
Yeah, you can't hate Freddie Freeman, right?
Can't hate Freddie Freeman. I love Mookie. Like, he's one of a kind. I love Turner. Like, there's so many guys that I love on the Dodgers. But I love Logan Webb, Giants. Like, he's a gem of a pitcher.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
So talk about your bet you made that I followed you on. This is kind of a sneaky one, I think. It's
a little scary. I bet Logan Webb to have the most wins in the NL. And what was it, Matt? Like 30 to 1?
Yeah.
But like I mentioned earlier, it's a little scary because I feel like the Giants are so analytical forward that they'll pull him before he's eligible for a win.
Right.
I think that's what scares me.
We'll see. I think there's a good chance, though. I mean, he was like the go-to guy last year for sure.
And he's so young, and they're gonna give him all the leash. If he wants to throw 150 pitches, they're gonna let him do it. But I still think Farhan Zaidi's pulling the strings, and he'll yank him when early if they need to.
Yeah. And it's a pitcher that I really like, young though, AL side though, Casey Mize, Tigers. I think he's a guy that's
we love you, Tigers.
Eventually here in the next couple seasons, hopefully.
Akil Baddoo is a god. We were talking, the Tigers probably have the best names of any MLB team.
Yeah. Who's the other guy? They had another guy on there that's just epic. But that's a good point by her to bring up like a pitcher on a not good team. Like nobody knows. The Tigers, 70, 80 wins and not 85. Like they're always under. And that's a good place to look because these teams aren't going to maybe win, but their pitcher's going to go out and throw a good game. So you got to look for those guys that might have a great game. You could do a strikeout prop or whatever it be. So that's good. Like the Marlins pitcher is really good too. They might not win, but
I'm actually very hot on the Tigers for over their win total this season. That 78.5, I think, is the best that I found it at. And I think rotation's young. They have a really young core. They obviously have some tough divisional matchups, especially with the White Sox. But I think that 78.5 seems like too low for them right now. I think they have a really young lineup. They've got a really good rotation. So I like the over on their win total.
Yeah, that's a good play. I mean, they do have Kyle Funkhauser on their team.
There you go. That's one.
Tariq Skewball.
Skewball, your boy.
There's a Turnbull, Jonathan Scope. Don't forget that one. Candelario. What a great team. Great names on that team.
What a great team. Yeah.
So how about the other Central Division? We have to get you to weigh in. Of course, totally objectively speaking. Cubs.
If we're looking at the Cubs, we're going to be terrible. I wouldn't bet. I mean, I know that this is not, we're not going to the World Series. We're not going to the playoffs. I don't think we're doing anything major. Being unbiased, clearly, and speaking to the NL Central, I think that the Brewers have a decent shot of going to the World Series this year as they did last year. I mean, Corbin Burns is such a stud and love Christian Yelich. I actually just met him out at a bar here in Phoenix recently. And
Oh
Scott,
my God.
such a nice guy.
That's
So
awesome.
I was such a little nerd and I like went up to him and nobody like really knew who he was. And I like I was with like two of my girlfriends and I was like, guys, I was like, that's Christian Yelich over there. They're like, I have no idea who that is. I was like, of course. But I was like, I'm going to go to him. And they were like, I was so nervous. I was like, I've never been like starstruck. I wasn't like starstruck, but I was like nervous to go say hi. So I like, went up to him and I was like, hi, I just wanted to come say hi. Like, I'm a big fan. He was so nice. He gave me a hug. He chatted with me for a couple minutes. And I was like, oh, you are great. He's a great guy.
I love Christian Yelich. He was really cool and part of my take too. And yeah, my love for Christian Yelich started at the WBC in LA when America won the WBC against Japan. And Yelich, I don't remember if he was the MVP, but he was fucking balling out that game. So I love that dude. And I love the Brewers bet too. To win the NL Central, they're only like minus 130, 125 at some shops. And like Zips has them at like an 80% chance, which would indicate like minus 400.
Right.
So there's a ton of value there.
There is.
So
I also think there's a lot of value right now on the AL East. I think that the Blue Jays are still
my God.
Plus 170 or something right now, which is crazy to me that they're still have that much value right now.
I wish I could show you. Maybe you can see my notes. I got Blue Jays and Brewers. Blue Jays and Brewers. I love the Blue Jays. I absolutely love their over. I love their World Series odds. They're a good ass team, and people are
totally agree. I don't know if I'm going to bet them World Series wise though. My World Series pick is the White Sox, and I like cringe saying it. Plus 1,200 right now for the Chicago White Sox. I'm like, they didn't do that much in the off season. I feel like Joe Kelly getting a reliever, that was probably their biggest move. But I feel like if they stay healthy, I mean, they've got such a good rotation.
They're good.
With Dylan and I'm trying to think who else do they have? Giolito, great, a really good guy. And then when it comes to hitting, I mean, if you can keep Eloy and Luis Roberts healthy.
Oh, Luis Roberts is a stud too. I like him for MVP maybe.
So my MVP pick for AL, I'm going Vlad for sure. Blue Jays there again. I'm like, he batted 311 last year. He had 48 homers. If he can bat over 50 homers this year, how could he not get votes over Ohtani? That's what I'm thinking. Ohtani is the favorite.
Right.
I don't like years in a row.
I think that the AL market for MVP is kind of weird because there's Trout, there's Ohtani, there's Vlad, and then there's everybody else. So like those three are like plus 400. Everybody else is like 20-1. So that's just what kind of scares me. I'd rather at least for me, I'm going to probably fire a couple guys that are like 20 or 30-1 just for fun.
Yeah.
Right. Because I feel like there's not a lot of value if you're just going to triple or quad your money. Like, it's kind of, it's okay. But yeah, I agree. I thought Vladdy was going to win it last season. And
definitely for him too. That's why I'm just like, I can't see Ohtani. I know he's the favorite right now, but winning it 2 years in a row, I feel like a little redundant. So, and I feel like the MLB over the course of the last 25 years, I mean, they haven't even had a repeat World Series back to back. So there's not a lot of in baseball.
Well, yeah, there's always people, but the only thing that scared me about the Blue Jays, and that's the last thing I have to say about them, because we've been talking about them for like 20 minutes, but so they won 91 games last year, and they set their win total at 91.5. And people don't remember is the Blue Jays weren't in Toronto. They were in Florida and then Buffalo. So they never really had a home team. Like they were moving. They were everywhere. Yet they set that line at the same number, which is kind of fishy. So that's what makes me a little bit nervous. But I love their the AL East odds. They're like plus 225, plus 250. Dude, I love that.
Me too. I'm on that one as well.
Do you think the number is a little depressed just because some of the perceived competition in that division? Like, of course, the Yankees are projected to be pretty good. Yeah. Boston, Tampa's still going to be there. And so, like, somebody is going to win upwards of 97, 98, 99 games. And why not Toronto at that price?
I feel like people are way too overhyped about the Yankees. The Yankees, in my opinion, at least as a franchise, and I'm sure their fan base believes, they're so used to winning. They haven't won in years. And I feel like they keep trying to bring in these big star players like Aaron Judge. And now they signed Rizzo, which I'm still rest in peace to Rizzo. My favorite.
Gross.
I get very emotional and sad over Rizzo, but I love Rizzo. And I'm like, they try to bring in these guys that I think that they're not thinking as like or as a whole team. They bring in like star power, assuming that that's going to get them to the World Series. And I just don't see the Yankees making it happen this year either.
I agree. And like what you look at, like every team, when you look at like their win totals, they're all going like over. The math doesn't add up to like 162.
Right. Exactly.
So all these are going to be inflated, and these books want to take advantage of every Yankees fan that sees that. What is it? 90, I think the Yankees were, or 91, whatever. They're all going to fire that over.
Right.
So,
works out in the book's favors for sure, I think.
No doubt. All right. Well, let's kind of start to wind down. Do you have any other? I mean, I saw your notes. You got probably multiple pages of notes. You have one or two more, whether it's a division or it's any other kind of future that you feel really good about?
Yeah. So I was saying, I gave you guys my World Series pick. I'm going with the White Sox. That's my take there. I kind of already gave my thing for that. One that I'm really liking, I like over on the wins total at right now. The best bet that I found it at 72.5 for the Rangers. I think during the offseason, they were the most improved team. They went out and did the most. I mean, they got Corey Seager, 10 years, $325 million. You're bringing in Marcus Semien at second base, rounding out the rotation with John Gray. I think that they are a team that is trying to win more, trying to improve. Last year was their first 100-loss season in 48 years, in the 5th season in a row that they haven't made the postseason. So I think they have something to prove. I don't think they're going to compete with the Astros or the Angels or really maybe even the Mariners, but I do think that win total is too low right now at 72.5. So I like the over on the win total for the Rangers. That's probably one of my favorite MLB futures right now. Then another play that I like a lot, I'm going with my NL MVP. I'm looking at Mookie Betts right now, and the value on that is at plus 900. I think that if he stays healthy, he bats, around 300 or over 300, hits over 30 home runs. He's a defensive guy, Golden Glove. I mean, he also can steal bases. He does it all. And he's on arguably the best, team in baseball. So I like Mookie Betts for the NL MVP.
He's got to stay healthy, though. That's his biggest issue.
It is.
I fired a little bit on Matt Olson.
Okay.
On the Blue Jays.
There we go.
Yeah. I think 20-1 with him. He's like amazing defensively. And on that lineup, they're going to win a lot of games. So I think Matt Olson's up there. Maybe he can outshine Vladdy, but who knows?
We'll see.
Could be fun.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Chris, you got anything else for Taylor? I mean, I know I think you guys were talking, and then Joe and I were having drinks and saw you talking and joined in the conversation. But Chris, you got anything else for Taylor before we let her get out of here?
No, I just want to ask her how her, obviously I'm smelly poop hazmat suit. So I love her Texas play because 72 wins. They're garbage. They're shitty, right? It's got to go under. No, over. I love it.
Over.
Over, baby. Yeah, and they can hit. Yeah, just get those pitchers going. How did your bracket turn out? Did you end up hanging in there?
Oh God, very busted. I did with like my Twitter followers. Basically, it was only on the round of 64, just picking straight up like who's gonna win, who's gonna lose. Because I was like, I can't keep track of this many brackets. I think I was letting 15 people in with me because I was like, this is going to be too much. And I did everything by hand. So I literally looked at everybody's brackets by hand and like scored them. I came in second in the bracket challenge. I had one guy in this league. He only lost 5 games in the whole round of 64. I'm like, how do you guess that many games correctly? You literally only guessed 5 wrong. One of them happened to be St. Peter's, Kentucky. in that round. I guessed 8 games wrong in the round of 64. So not terrible. Could have done better. I had Arizona winning my whole thing. That obviously gone, dead and gone. I had Kentucky and Arizona in the championship game. That was done after first round. So it's very busted. I don't think I had any of these teams going to the Final Four, I'm pretty sure. So that's my outlook there.
Madness, right? There's the March Madness.
Pure madness.
Thank you so much for being here. And you'll always have a space in my heart. I told you my family's from Des Plaines, Illinois. So I knew when I heard that you've got that little Illinois accent.
Illinois, I was like, I can hear that.
I don't know how close that is to Sandwich, but
it's actually not too far. Not too far.
No.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, Taylor, we can't thank you enough for spending a little bit of time with us. We're a small show. We look for opportunities to network and talk to different people and have different guests on. So for you to take the time for us, and we really, really appreciate it. It was a blast having you on. And we will definitely have to connect again at some point during baseball season.
For sure. I would love it.
Awesome.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks to Joe and Chris. And Chris, I guess let's just get out of here with this. Just remind everybody what happens sometimes when you bet on poop like the Texas Rangers or, God forbid, the LA Lakers.
Sometimes you get a shitty result, but maybe you step in roses with Taylor Mathis.